Intimacy isn't just about physical closeness. It's about connection, reassurance, and being seen. When a man has been without intimacy for a long time, his behavior quietly shifts, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle patterns that reveal what he's missing. Understanding these signs isn't about judgment. It's about awareness, empathy, and emotional intelligence. First, he overvalues small gestures. A simple smile or kind message feels disproportionately meaningful to him. Second, he seeks validation more often, subtly checking if he still matters or is desired. Third, his emotional walls may swing between oversharing and complete shutdown, unsure how to connect safely. Fourth, he becomes unusually attentive, sometimes confusing intensity for intimacy. And finally, he may idealize connection, placing too much weight on potential rather than reality. Recognizing these signs allows you to respond consciously. Intimacy grows best where understanding replaces assumption and clarity replaces guesswork. When a man has been without intimacy for a long time, emotional hunger almost always appears before physical desire. This is important because many people assume the absence of intimacy only shows up as sexual frustration. In reality, the deeper craving is for connection, reassurance, and emotional safety. Long before he misses physical closeness, he misses feeling chosen, understood, and emotionally significant to someone. You'll notice this in how strongly he reacts to small moments. A kind word, a thoughtful question, or a bit of attention can land with surprising weight. What looks like overexcitement is often emotional deprivation. When someone hasn't felt emotionally close to another person in a long time, even minor validation feels like water in a desert. It's not desperation, it's relief. Relief that someone sees him, listens to him, or treats him like he matters. This emotional hunger can also shape how he shows interest. Instead of confident desire, there may be a careful, almost tentative energy. He might hesitate to ask for what he wants, or overthink simple interactions. That's because emotional neglect teaches people to protect themselves. When connection has been missing for a long time, the fear of losing it becomes stronger than the confidence to enjoy it freely. Another sign of emotional hunger is how quickly meaning is assigned. He may read depth into neutral actions or assume emotional closeness before it's fully built. This isn't manipulation, it's projection. The mind fills gaps with hope when reality hasn't provided connection for a long time. Emotional hunger makes people want to believe that this time, finally, it means something. You may also notice that his need isn't constant but cyclical. At times, he seems deeply engaged, present, and open. At other moments, he pulls back unexpectedly. This push and pull happens when someone wants connection but isn't used to sustaining it. Emotional starvation can create both craving and fear at the same time. He wants closeness, but closeness feels unfamiliar, even unsafe. Emotional hunger is not a weakness. It's a signal. It tells you that intimacy, when it finally arrives, has the power to heal or overwhelm, depending on how it's handled. Awareness is key. When you understand that emotional need comes before physical desire, you stop misinterpreting behavior as clingy, cold, or confusing. Instead, you see the underlying need for reassurance and connection. This understanding also empowers you. You can choose to respond with clarity rather than confusion, boundaries rather than assumptions, and empathy rather than judgment. Emotional intimacy grows best when both people recognize what's really being asked for. Often it's not touch or attraction first, it's safety, consistency, and emotional presence. When those needs are met, everything else follows naturally. When a man has been without intimacy for a long time, his behavior often reveals it more clearly than anything he says. Words are easy to control, but patterns are not. This is why unmet intimacy shows up in actions, reactions, and habits that seem small on the surface, but tell a much deeper story underneath. One of the clearest behavioral signs is inconsistency. He may alternate between showing strong interest and then suddenly becoming distant. This isn't usually a game or manipulation. It's the result of someone who hasn't practiced emotional closeness in a long time. Intimacy requires rhythm and emotional regulation. Without recent experience, he can struggle to maintain that balance, pulling back when closeness feels overwhelming, then re-engaging when the absence feels painful again. Another behavioral clue is over-effort. He may try too hard to please, agree too quickly, or go out of his way to be helpful. While this can look generous, it often comes from a fear of losing connection rather than a place of grounded confidence. When intimacy has been missing, the subconscious belief becomes, if I do enough, I'll be valued. This turns behavior into proof-seeking rather than expression. Unmet intimacy also shows up in how he responds to boundaries. A man who hasn't experienced emotional closeness in a long time may feel unusually affected by even gentle limits. He might interpret a delayed reply or a need for space as rejection. That sensitivity isn't immaturity, it's emotional scarcity. When connection has been rare, any perceived withdrawal feels amplified. You may also notice heightened attentiveness paired with insecurity. He remembers details, checks in frequently, and shows strong interest, but seeks reassurance through subtle questions or tone shifts. Behavior becomes a way of asking, am I still okay with you? This happens because unmet intimacy trains people to monitor connection instead of trusting it. At the same time, there can be moments of emotional withdrawal. He may go quiet after opening up or avoid deeper conversations after showing vulnerability. This push and pull reflects someone who wants closeness but hasn't felt safe holding it. When intimacy has been absent, vulnerability can feel risky, even when it's desired. The key is understanding that these behaviors are not flaws to fix, but signals to interpret. Behavior speaks when words can't. When you learn to read these patterns, you stop reacting personally to actions that are rooted in emotional absence, not intention. Awareness allows you to respond with steadiness instead of confusion. True intimacy grows when behavior is met with clarity, consistency, and emotional boundaries. When someone feels safe enough to relax their behavior, words and actions slowly come back into alignment. When a man has been without intimacy for a long time, loneliness doesn't always look like sadness or isolation. More often, it disguises itself in two opposite ways, over-effort or emotional withdrawal. These responses may seem contradictory, but they come from the same place, the absence of sustained emotional connection. In over-effort, loneliness shows up as trying to earn closeness instead of allowing it to develop naturally. He may overextend himself, become overly available, or place your needs far above his own. This isn't because he lacks self-respect, but because loneliness teaches people that connection is fragile and must be secured. When intimacy has been missing, the fear becomes not being enough, so effort becomes armor. This over-effort can also appear as emotional intensity too early. He may rush closeness, want deep conversations immediately, or push for a sense of togetherness before it's organically built. Loneliness compresses time. What should develop gradually feels urgent because the emotional gap has been there for so long. The intention isn't control or pressure, it's relief from isolation. On the opposite end, loneliness can show up as withdrawal. After moments of connection, he may pull back, go quiet, or become emotionally unavailable. This happens when closeness triggers vulnerability he isn't used to managing. Long-term emotional absence can make intimacy feel foreign, even threatening. The nervous system reacts by creating distance to regain a sense of control. What makes this confusing is the swing between these two states. One moment he's deeply engaged, expressive, and present. The next he's distant or hard to reach. This push and pull isn't about inconsistency of interest, it's about inconsistency of emotional capacity. Loneliness can make someone crave intimacy while simultaneously fearing the exposure it brings. Another subtle sign is how he handles silence. Emotional withdrawal often comes with distraction, staying busy, avoiding reflection, or filling time to avoid feeling alone. When intimacy has been absent, stillness can amplify loneliness. So, withdrawal becomes a coping mechanism rather than a rejection of others. Understanding this pattern changes how you interpret his actions. Instead of assuming mixed signals or emotional unavailability by choice, you recognize a person navigating unmet emotional needs without the tools to regulate them yet. Awareness protects you from internalizing behavior that isn't about your worth. Healthy intimacy doesn't require you to fix loneliness, but it does benefit from emotional steadiness. When over-effort is met with calm boundaries and withdrawal is met with consistency rather than pressure, space opens for balance. Loneliness loses its grip when connection feels safe, not conditional. Awareness is what turns emotional complexity into clarity. When you understand that long periods without intimacy shape behavior, you stop reacting from confusion and start responding with intention. This is where emotional intelligence changes everything. Instead of guessing, overanalyzing, or personalizing every shift in behavior, you recognize patterns for what they are and choose how to engage from a grounded place. Without awareness, it's easy to mislabel behavior. Attentiveness can feel overwhelming, withdrawal can feel like rejection, and inconsistency can feel like dishonesty. Awareness reframes these moments. It allows you to see that what's happening is often not about attraction or lack of interest, but about emotional capacity and unmet needs. This understanding prevents unnecessary emotional spirals and protects your sense of self-worth. Responding with clarity means communicating expectations calmly and early. It means not rewarding confusion with over-explanation or chasing, and not punishing vulnerability with distance or silence. Clarity is steady. It shows up as consistency in your words, actions, and boundaries. When someone has been without intimacy for a long time, this steadiness becomes grounding. It teaches them that connection doesn't disappear when emotions fluctuate. Clarity also involves knowing what is yours to hold and what is not. You can be empathetic without becoming responsible for someone else's healing. Awareness helps you avoid slipping into the role of rescuer, fixer, or emotional regulator. Intimacy thrives between two whole individuals, not one person carrying the emotional weight for both. Another powerful shift that awareness creates is patience without self-abandonment. You can allow space for someone to learn how to reconnect emotionally while still honoring your own needs and limits. This balance is crucial. Without it, empathy turns into endurance, and understanding turns into self-neglect. Awareness draws the line clearly. When clarity replaces guesswork, emotional safety increases. Emotional safety is what allows intimacy to deepen naturally. It's built when both people know where they stand, what is expected, and what is respected. Someone who has lacked intimacy often hasn't experienced this kind of safety consistently. When they do, defensive behaviors soften over time. Awareness empowers choice. You are no longer reacting to behavior. You are responding to reality. And from that place, intimacy becomes intentional, mutual, and emotionally sustainable rather than confusing or draining.